I wasn't able to find my Supernatural shirt because I just did my laundry and I haven't actually folded it yet. And it's really hard to find a black tank top in a sea of black tank tops. So you guys are going to have to live with a Quantum Leap for today. Anyways, so carry on, Wayward fans. We've got 6 before we're done. Uh, Supernatural is counting down to the end, so I thought I would do reviews of the episodes that were going to be coming out leading up to the finale. So this episode is Last Holiday, and it aired this evening, which is October 8th, and was directed by Eduardo Sanchez and written by Jeremy Adams. And I think this was actually kind of a nice episode to bring the show back in because obviously this season is strange. This is kind of like a postscript season, except not because they, did half the season before the COVID outbreak and then they took a big break so that they could finish doing all of the filming. And now they're just coming back now. And I think this episode works really well because there was a nice break in the storyline where we had Jack get his soul back. And now we're coming in from the fallout with that. But this episode wasn't like a super heavy one to come back in on. Like, there is certainly a lot of stuff that happens, but most of it is kind of one of the light, frothy, one shot episodes that Supernatural is really good at. And I think this is actually one of their better ones. Because it isn't just a Sam and Dean go out on the road, even though there's all of this crazy stuff happening. I've always disliked when Supernatural did that, when they're like, oh my God, the apocalypse is happening, but let's stop in some podunk town to kill some vampires or whatever. But it's all set in the bunker, except for a few scenes on the outside, and it's all insular to their little family unit. Cass is off doing, whatever they have Cass do when they don't want Misha Collins on set. Um, it's always the same thing. It's always, Cass has some sort of contact. Not really, the strongest of excuses, but whatever, it works. But yeah, instead of being Sam and Dean are going out on a case, this is just something weird happens at the bunker. And I have to say that I didn't think of it until this episode was happening, but it totally makes sense that the bunker should have more stuff going on for it than we've seen so far. And I kind of like I know it was like a wood nymph, but kind of like this genie kind of idea to it where it's just like anything you want this magical creature can give you. uh so I did enjoy that, and I loved Mrs. B. I think I'm actually really sad she's not sticking around. Like, I get it, because they did make her pretty OP. um so you can't really keep that around when you're going to be getting into a fight with God, because then things are going to go bad. But um, this was a fun episode. I love when Dean is happy. And the bit when he's seeing that she's set up Christmas for them is just, he's so full of childlike joy. Um, and also the fact that we find out in this episode that Dean wears Scooby-Doo boxers. Um, didn't know I needed that. But I really, really hope that every single fanfic writer now puts that into their fic. Because I'm sure you had them wear all sexy. I don't actually read a lot of Supernatural fanfic. But when I do, certainly, I don't see him wearing goofy Scooby-Doo underwear. It's usually something a lot sexier than that. And it's like, no, Dean Winchester is like the biggest nerd ever. He just hides it a little bit. So yeah, of course he would. But I think that the actress that they got to play Mrs. B was really good. I've seen her in other things. And she just kind of embodied like that Mary Poppins-esque kind of, you know, polite little, housekeeper role perfectly. And I think she worked really well. And they did a really good job of establishing why the guys would want to keep her around. Well, you understood why, even though she wanted to kill Jack, that, she was actually a good person to have around. Uh, and that she didn't, her not getting along with Jack it was justifiable because obviously, he's the son of Satan. He's literally Lucifer's son, and he has done horrible, horrible things. And this is what makes this a really good one shot, in that you do have these character beats where Jack is trying to come to terms with the fact that he has done all of these bad things when he didn't have a soul, and now he's being confronted with them. And I think the way that it was structured was really good, because you had these emotional moments mostly having to do with Jack and Dean and Mrs. B. And having Mrs. B in there brings the outside perspective where, she's trying to be very reasonable, where it's like he's, a monster who's done all of these terrible things. And by having her say this to Dean, who has always been the person who has been less assured of Jack, right from the very beginning. And when Mary died, certainly Dean was the one who was all for getting rid of Jack. I think Sam embraced Jack much more as family. I think Dean has always had trouble. I don't want to say Dean's had trouble, because Dean does take people into the family, but his heart is so big that he feels everything really hard. So betrayals will hit him harder than they do Sam, but he also is very accepting. And Jensen's acting was really great when he's slowly figuring out what's going on with Mrs. B and her having captured Jack, and him looking down at this like grilled cheese, I think it was, and just being so sad because he's like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to kill her. um and him being so attracted to keeping her around really makes sense, because Dean's always been the one who, weirdly enough, wanted more of a normal life. Even though they always made such a big deal about the fact that Sam wanted to get away, and Sam tried to get away to go to Stanford. Sam always thinks of it as an either or situation, like he's either a hunter or he's having a normal life. Meanwhile, Dean has basically, since they've gotten the bunker, tried to walk a tightrope where it's like, I can be a hunter, and I can also, nest and have this kind of domestic life. And he also tried to do this back in season 6, I guess, with Lisa, where he tried to have both. And it's always difficult, but it does kind of, this is why he's so attracted to having Mrs. B around, because she's basically like a grandmotherly figure. I don't want to say a motherly figure, because certainly we already know what Dean's mother is like. So, but we even saw that when Mary first came around, and Dean wanted her to make, her famous pie, and Mary, had to admit that, she didn't actually make pie herself, because she wasn't really like this great maternal type. So Dean's always kind of wanted like this very nuclear, but not nuclear, like this very Norman Rockwell type situation, just with his found family. Um, that's not to say that I didn't like the stuff that happened with Sam. I mean, he wasn't in there as much, but he did have some nice stuff. I liked him going out on a date with Eileen and Dean being such a good wingman. Where he's like, our housekeeper's trying to kill me and Jack, but I'm not going to call you because you're getting laid. I mean, that's a good brother there. It's an A+ work there, Dean. Um, but yeah, I like that Sam was going out with Eileen and that he let Mrs. B dress him up with the tie and everything. It was very sweet. I like them together, and I don't know any spoilers for the rest of the season, so please don't tell me. But I really hope that things work out for them. If I were to hypothesize, and I don't like this idea, it does seem like they're setting things up for at least Sam to have a happy life. So I don't know if Dean is going to end up making some sort of sacrifice so that Sam can have a normal life, which that's often how Supernatural has kind of ended. That happened in season 5, just with the roles reversed. And now it would be, Sam's trying to get it. I don't want that to happen, but I'm not saying that it won't. Just, throwing that out there. And Sam realizing just, how Mrs. B is not actually a bad guy and how she's just been kind of manipulated by that one man of letters whose name I can't remember, but the one that they showed in the opening, the Dean took the head off of when he got the knife. I am forgetting it. I just watched the episode like half an hour ago, and I haven't seen a lot of the later seasons recently, so I forget people's names. I really should have looked them up, but you know what? Just deal with me kind of rambling. But yeah, the men of letters, they had her as a captive, and I think it worked really well because it's not like she was angry at them because of it. She obviously still thought very well of them, and she did take the picture of them at the end that was gifted to her because she took care of them. They were her family. But she did have another family that she had been taken away from. So it was kind of this very nice layering of this character. And she was only around for one episode, but I really liked her. And it's not often we get an episode where a character shows up for one episode and you kind of get exactly who they are in one episode and then they go away and that's it. I think probably the last time I can really remember a character like landing this hard was when they first brought Charlie in. And obviously with her, they did end up bringing Charlie back a bunch of times. And I think Mrs. B is a character who they might have brought back if they weren't 6 episodes before the end. Though I don't know, maybe they will bring her back, but I doubt it. She did make a mention. My phone made a noise. She did make a mention of the interdimensional gyroscope, I think it was, and just very vaguely said that, oh, that's not good, when Dean said that he couldn't see anything in it, which I'm guessing means that Chuck has finished destroying all of the other dimensions, which makes me sad because I personally believe that the Scooby-Doo dimension is out there, like the one that they were sucked into. I think that was an actual other dimension. And I don't want that one to be destroyed. I think that we can allow 2 dimensions to still exist. It can be, or maybe 3, because I guess we have to have one. And we do know that within the multiverse of Supernatural, that Supernatural is a TV show in one dimension. Though I guess that one isn't ours, because in that one Misha Collins died. So, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, we still have to understand about these, dimensions being winked out, and she seems to know about that sort of thing. And I don't know, maybe she's a Chekhov's gun that's being brought in towards the very end, so that they can bring her out in like the finale. They do like to do that. And certainly I wouldn't be upset if that happened, because she made such an impact in this episode that I think they did earn bringing her back. I just don't know if they will, because they have a lot of stuff to do before then. It's only 6 episodes to the end. And there's just, oh my goodness. I mean, I have to tell you, I can't believe that Supernatural is really going to be over soon. This is just my first of Supernatural reviews, and once it's done, I am planning to do a more structured episode in which I'll do a retrospective on Supernatural. But I started watching Supernatural in season 6. Just the very end of season 6. I don't even know how I got into it. Actually, I do know. Somebody on, of all places, Fandom Wink, mentioned the episode "The Monster at the End of This Book," and I ended up watching it. That was the very first episode of Supernatural I watched. Which, if you're going to watch a first episode of Supernatural at that time, that wasn't a bad one. That's kind of like how now, if you show people Supernatural, you show them Scooby Natural, which I've totally done. I've totally shown people Scooby Natural just as an example of the show. Anyways, so yeah, I watched it, and then it was like, oh crap, now I gotta watch this entire show from the very beginning. And yeah, it was during season 6, and I felt really bad, because it was like, oh my gosh, I really love this show. I'm just getting into it, and it's going to be over soon. And that was 9 years ago. It was actually just today. I got a memory on my Facebook of a picture of me with my best friend, and we're with Misha Sebastian Roche, who played Balthazar, and Mark Shepard, because we had gone to one of the creation events for her birthday, and we got a picture with them, and I'm in it, and I'm wearing a t-shirt with Cass and Crowley done in like this cartoon form, and I know Mark really liked my shirt a lot. And that was back in the days when I was still willing to pay for a creation event. I would not do that now. And it was mostly because it was her birthday. I mean, I certainly enjoyed doing it, but I've done a lot of conventions, and I've gotten fairly, even 8 years ago, I was pretty jaded about them. But yeah, so despite the fact that I got into the show when people thought it was winding down, it's still been 9 years. And yeah, that's a long time for me to have been into something. That's, I mean, that's longer than Buffy and Angel both together. Like, that Buffy and Angel was only 8 years, so yeah, wow. And I do certainly know that there are people that have watched it from the very beginning, and I know people that were children when this show went on the air. and are now married. Oh, geez. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things go. Um, One problem that I often have with Supernatural is that they lose the thread of the season, um, because they have like kind of this awesome plot idea, and then it meanders off while they do all of these other cases, and then they have to rush at the very end to actually pick up the plot thread, which was really interesting to begin with. Um, I think they've been doing a fairly good job of keeping Chuck in the whole thing because, I mean, it's God. You can't just drop that thread. That's just ridiculous. So I think they're doing okay so far, and it's just we'll have to see how it continues on. Like, this might be one of the last standalones for all we know. I don't know, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was a fun little romp, and it was funny, but it was sweet when it needed to be. And I'm really glad that Supernatural is back, even though it's going to be gone very soon. So I think that's about it. I'll be doing other videos, obviously, and next week's going to be interesting because I'll be doing both Supernatural and now that Discovery is coming back on the air, I'm probably going to be doing reviews of Discovery as well. And they air one after the other. So I'm going to have a very busy Thursday night. Yeah, I live in Canada, so Discovery actually airs on TV. But yeah, I'll have to figure out how I do both Supernatural and Discovery. And right now I'm just doing a wrap up on Lower Decks, along with all of the other videos that I have so far mentioned, because apparently this is going to be a thing that I'm just going to keep on doing. Just going to keep on putting out videos and just see how it works out.